Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and today's video is going to be a fun one. In today's video, I'm taking you to the Great League, where a trainer is bringing out triple buffed Shadow Pokemon in Shadow Abomasnow, Shadow Qwilfish, and Shadow Camerupt. Now these battles were submitted to the channel by a member of the community TPP, so many thanks for the battle submission. Now Abomasnow got buffed due to Energy Ball getting reworked, Shadow Qwilfish got access to Shadow Ball, and Shadow Camerupt benefits from the cheaper Earth Power. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches, and let's watch some triple Shadow shenanigans in the Open Great League. We move to game number 1, picking up a very bad lead, Shadow Abomasnow into Shadow Bugbite Fortress. One Powder Snow and a save switch into Qwilfish, opponent responds with Feraligatr, but this is where the new move of Shadow Ball is going to be key. Qwilfish, full sense of Shadow Ball, Feraligatr gets rocked, they barely hang on to make the Hydro Cannon. Can Qwilfish survive? Qwilfish no shields, pays a very heavy price, but is able to farm down and win switch advantage. In comes Altaria, and by losing switch advantage, the opponent has completely lost this game. Abomasnow fires off Weather Ball just before the switch clock is up. Weather Ball is going to guarantee a shield from the Purified Altaria, and it does actually end up being a CMP tie. Abomasnow going to shield right back. Once the opponent switches into the Fortress, we're going to see the immediate counter switch into the Camerupt. Camerupt can look for the full Incinerate farm down. Fortress goes for the Sand Tomb, debuffing the Camerupt's defense, but look at Camerupt go, absolutely deleting the Fortress. Back in comes the Altaria, but they're completely energy dry, and that means Camerupt is going to outpace. First Rock Tomb gets the shield, second Rock Tomb is going to get the win. Even despite the worst case scenario lead, the opponent disrespected Shadow Ball, Shadow Qwilfish, and that cost them the entire game. We move to game number 2, and what a lead, Shadow Abomasnow into Shadow Altaria. Opponent save switches into Grumpig, and this is a pretty big problem for this team. Usually when I see Altaria and Grumpig, I assume the final mon is going to be an Empoleon. Empoleon also seems like it could be a bit of a problematic Pokemon for this team to deal with. Abomasnow is getting nice damage onto the Grumpig. Abomasnow overfarms, goes for a Dynamic Punch catch, but does not get it. This Shadow Ball is going to rock the Qwilfish. Qwilfish gets destroyed. Qwilfish gets Psywave down, and switch advantage has been lost. This is very, very bad. If it's the Empoleon in the back, this game is just over. In comes Camerupt, getting the Incinerate head start. In comes Altaria. At the very least, Camerupt can pressure away a shield and go for the combo play with the Abomasnow. That should pressure away both Protect shields, and then maybe there's a chance for Camerupt to sweep in the endgame. Abomasnow fires off the Weather Ball. That's going to be shielded by the Altaria. In the back is Gourgeist, but Gourgeist will not farm down before the Weather Ball is reached. This will come very close to knocking out. Gourgeist is able to survive. They leave with the Seed Bomb, but they didn't throw it. Had they thrown the Seed Bomb, I think they win the game, but they don't throw the Seed Bomb. Camerupt still has the shield. It can shield up the Sky Attack, click the Rock Tomb, and win the game. Maybe the opponent didn't realize they'd farmed down the Abomasnow, but they overtap, they don't get that critical Seed Bomb, and losing that energy cost them everything. Picking up a very bad lead in the next match, Shadow Abomasnow into Tinkaton. Anytime you're running a spicier team like this, and this team is very, very spicy, unfortunately, Spice Picks just don't have the same coverage as a lot of the neutral Metamons. So you're always going to end up weak to something, and this team is very soft to Tinkaton. Bulldoze lands, does not get the debuff. In comes a Dugong. Now, Dugong is a Pokemon that I'm not really quite sure why it's here, but Qwilfish would really love to land a Shadow Ball on it. Dugong did get buffed this season, Drill Run getting cheaper, but arguably, I still think Dugong ends up lagging behind a lot of other Pokemon that have access to the same Ice Ground coverage. In comes Abomasnow. Abomasnow is basically just going to be a damage sponge in this match. Abomasnow can't really do anything into the Tinkaton, so Abomasnow is just going to be fully sacrificed, and then I imagine we should see a pivot out into the Shadow Camerupt. Camerupt hits the field, there's the pivot back into Tinkaton, and Tinkaton mistimes and lets an entire Incinerate through. Camerupt shields, will we see the Bulldoze debuff? No, we will not, and Camerupt now has a 60 energy head start. In the back is Shadow Dusknoir. Camerupt's gonna bait with the Rock Tomb, and then look to pick up the one-hit KO with the Earth Power. Earth Power now costs the same as Scorching Sands, but does more damage, and that's why Camerupt runs Earth Power this season. Earth Power connects, that's the end of Dusknoir. In comes Dugong, it falls to the Incinerate fast move pressure, and that's a good game. Picking up a disastrous lead in the next match, Shadow Abomasnow into Kanto Ninetales. Honestly, one of the reasons why I'm not a big fan of Abomasnow in this meta is its extremely polarizing typing. It feels like it could be a really cool core breaker, but there's so many matchups where it is absolutely no play. Opponent makes a really nice play. They end up shielding the first Aqua Tail, catching the second onto Altaria. They've now stored a massive amount of energy on the Kanto Ninetales. Qwilfish just going to look to store energy back. Altaria fires off Sky Attack, but now the timer should be up. Qwilfish can bank the energy and send in a Abomasnow. In comes a Abomasnow, these Powder Snows shredding through the Altaria. Knowing there's a Kanto Ninetales that could switch in, no shield comes out from the Abomasnow, and Abomasnow will get the full farm down. Abomasnow will fire off Energy Ball as Ninetales hits the field. Energy Ball is resisted, but will still do a decent amount of chip damage. Qwilfish will win charge attack priority here over the Ninetales. Oh no, the catch! Going for the Aqua Tail, it's caught onto the Kingdra, and everything suddenly has gone wrong. Qwilfish overfarms firing off the Shadow Ball, but if Kingdra shields, there is just no path forward in this game. Kingdra shields, in comes the Camerupt, but Kingdra is always going to outpace. Kingdra will make double Swift before the Earth Power is reached. Kingdra goes for the Surf, but even with that misplay, they're still going to win because they have an insane amount of energy on the Kanto Ninetales. Earth Power is going to be the end of Kingdra. In comes the Ninetales, and there is just simply no way Camerupt is ever surviving the neutral Energy Ball. Energy Ball will take the knockout. In comes Qwilfish, so close to the Aqua Tail, but not quite able to get there. They had the Weather Ball, but they overfarmed to go for the Energy Ball to secure the game. We move to the next match. Shadow Abomasnow hoping that it can actually win a lead, and it does as it leads into Celio. Energy Ball will not pick up a one-hit KO here because this is the non-Shadow Celio, but it would do quite a lot of damage. Abomasnow no shields as Celio fires off the Body Slam. That does do a decent amount of damage, and Abomasnow will return fire with Energy Ball. Abomasnow would love a no shield here. Energy Ball lands, Celio survives, but a Body Slam catch onto Shadow Qwilfish is going to lose a lot of its HP. Qwilfish loses like 40% of its health instantly. Out comes Greninja, and this is a very bad Pokemon for this team to see. If Greninja ever sees Camerupt, the Water Shurikens are going to melt through that Pokemon with double super effective damage. Greninja doubles up on Night Slashes, Qwilfish will get KO'd. Abomasnow is going to be brought back in here, but Abomasnow would probably get knocked out by the Night Slash as well. So Abomasnow is forced to put up a shield. Greninja gets the Night Slash boost, Abomasnow gets the Powder Snow down, and exits up a ton of energy. In the back is Fortress, and thank goodness, the one thing Camerupt could beat down a shield in the back. Opponent sees the writing on the wall and concedes the match. Familiar lead in the next match, Shadow Abomasnow into Altaria. Opponent safe switches into Empoleon, and unfortunately the Camerupt counter switch was very slow here. This means Empoleon has a huge energy head start. The Incinerates are adding up. Empoleon throws on alignment, and that's going to come back to bite them. As Camerupt is going to be forced to double shield, but Camerupt is going to exit with 100 energy, and these Rock Tombs are going to inflict massive damage onto the Altaria. Altaria can survive one, but the second Rock Tomb would be able to pick up the knockout. Camerupt throwing one more Incinerate, going for Rock Tomb number 2. Is the opponent really willing to double shield the Altaria? And they are willing to double shield. Camerupt racing to the Rock Tomb, not able to get there. Altaria is going to cut them off with the double debuff Sky Attack. It does not KO, and there's a switch into Abomasnow. In the back is Talonflame. Abomasnow, I don't think is going to survive the Incinerate here, but the Camerupt did save a Rock Tomb on 1 HP, so Camerupt can be brought in here. Rock Tomb easily going to be knocking out the Talonflame, and then I don't think Altaria has enough damage to be able to one-shot the Qwilfish before Qwilfish can make it to a Shadow Ball. In comes the Qwilfish. Altaria would need to make it to back-to-back Sky Attacks, and they just simply do not have the energy required. Sky Attack lands, Qwilfish is low, but not low enough. Qwilfish hangs on, makes it to the Shadow Ball, and there was just never a chance. Down goes Altaria, and that's going to be a win. We move to the next match. We've got mirror leads, Shadow Abomasnow into regular Abomasnow. A safe switch into Shadow Qwilfish. Qwilfish just going to fire off an Aqua Tail. If the opponent knows their counts, they know this is only a resisted Aqua Tail, but they don't know the Qwilfish counts. They put up the shield, and now they send in an Alolan Ninetales. They're running ABA Powder Snow. Abomasnow and Alolan Ninetales have very similar coverage, so I think running them ABA doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. Qwilfish no shields and pays the price. It's a Psyshock from the Ninetales, but Abomasnow is going to get a very nice farm down. Opponent, do they have an answer to Abomasnow in the back? No, they're bringing their Abomasnow into the mirror, but the Shadow Abomasnow will always be able to tank a Weather Ball here. Weather Ball will connect. Opponent already at Weather Ball number 2, but TPP not going to throw just yet. Instead, going to look to overfarm and try and farm them into a range where Weather Ball could actually take the KO. Opponent is in a really awkward spot now. If they no shield, they lose the Abomasnow. They do no shield. In the back is going to be an Acid Cridilli, and this game should be a win. Cridilli has to shield, and then it's time for Shadow Camerupt to steal the show. Look at these Incinerates, my goodness. Cridilli going to fire off a Rock Tomb on pretty good timing there, getting the debuff before the Incinerate applies, but it's just not going to matter. Even at -1, this is a Shadow Earth Power from Camerupt. Earth Power connects, Incinerate farms down the Cridilli, and takes another win. We move to the next match. Shadow Abomasnow is going to be greeted in this game by a Salazzle. Oh my goodness, the spice. That is a terrible lead. Going to transfer the Incinerate onto the Qwilfish, but by staying in and throwing the Powder Snow, Qwilfish no longer outpaces here. Poison Fang lands, Qwilfish taking huge damage, but the good news is, if they stay in, Qwilfish is going to make the back-to-back Aqua Tails. Aqua Tail number 1 is going to be shielded. Qwilfish gets to Aqua Tail number 2. It did not survive the Incinerate by much there. Aqua Tail pressures away the shield. Salazzle does get a pretty massive farm down, but they're down to protect shields. The Camerupt will have to be brought in here. If the opponent has Dragon Pulse, that would hurt quite a bit, but they blind through. I assume they blind through Poison Fang, and they did. Nice call. Opponent pivots out into a Azumarill. Those bubbles are absolutely shredding the Camerupt, and Abomasnow will switch in. Abomasnow would love nothing more than to try and exit with a bunch of residual energy, because exiting with energy means that Abomasnow would have the ability to fire off the Weather Ball and knock out Salazzle. Energy Ball lands, Azumarill able to hang on, Abomasnow makes it to the Weather Ball, winning the charge stack priority tie, but Abomasnow is 2 off the Weather Ball, switch timer not yet up, opponent can bring in Salazzle, the Incinerate is shredding, Salazzle will fire off the Poison Fang to pressure away the final shield, Abomasnow can throw 1 and take the knockout here, there's a pivot out into Decidueye. I don't know what a Decidueye is doing here, but I guess the answer is just getting 1 shot. Decidueye actually barely hangs on, and Camerupt now gets to fire off Shadow Earth Power. This has to do like at least 250% to a Salazzle. Shadow Earth Power taking the knockout. Someone let me know down in the comments, send it on PP Poke, how much damage did that do to Salazzle? Dream Lead in the next match, Shadow Abomasnow into Dragonite. Opponent safe switches into Furret, and Furret does actually look to be a bit of a problematic Pokemon for this team. Weather Ball is going to connect. In comes Camerupt. Furret throwing on very poor charge stack timing. Even if they wanted to Trailblaze, they could have thrown on 7, but they throw on 8 and give 3 free turns over to the Camerupt. Because of that poor timing, they don't make a second move, and that is just going to cost them. Shadow Camerupt going to unleash Rock Tomb. Dragonite puts up the shield. Camerupt is going to fall to the Dragon Breath pressure, and Abomasnow will hit the field, but it's Talonflame in the back. Talonflame probably not going to be using the final shield here. Weather Ball will hit for some pretty big damage, and now Qwilfish has to try and Poison Sting down. 2 Poison Stings will not KO here, which means this will come down to damage registration error. Qwilfish gets the farm down. Talonflame does not get a move. Back in comes the Dragonite, and Qwilfish is going to farm up just shy of 100 energy. No baits here. Full set of the Shadow Ball. Dragonite puts up the shield. Qwilfish gets the sneak as they fire off Thunder Punch. Who wins charge stack priority here? I genuinely don't know. And it's going to be Qwilfish getting the Shadow Ball. That Dragonite energy was very, very scary, but Qwilfish just hits too hard, and Dragonite falls. Terrible lead in the next match. Shadow Abomasnow into Kanto Ninetales. Immediate save switch into Qwilfish, answered with Kingdra. Kingdra instantly fires off the Swift. And unfortunately, if Qwilfish wants to generate an advantage out of this matchup, Qwilfish might have to go for a devious Aqua Tail bait, and that's exactly what's going to happen. Qwilfish overfarms massively, goes for the double resisted Aqua Tail bait, gets the shield, and now gets the Shadow Ball on the CMP tie. Is the opponent willing to double shield here? Shadow Ball is going to connect, and Kingdra gets KO'd. In comes Mantine. Mantine is a pretty big core breaker to the Abomasnow Camerupt core, but Shadow Qwilfish makes the Shadow Ball and pressures away the final shield. Qwilfish gonna get fully farmed down. Abomasnow will basically just be fully sacrificed here, because it's not like Abomasnow is gonna be doing anything of value going up against a Kanto Ninetales. Twister number 1 connects, immediately followed by Twister number 2. Abomasnow very comfortable in taking that damage, and now in comes the Camerupt. Camerupt just needs to make the Rock Tomb into the Mantine. Mantine fires off energy. Even just a Twister would do a lot of damage. They do bait with the Twister. Camerupt gonna go for the Rock Tomb. Opponent gets the catch onto the Kanto Ninetales. But this Rock Tomb is gonna hit for so much damage. The question is, this is now a debuff to Energy Ball. Opponent throws on very poor timing. Is this going to KO? Energy Ball lands. Camerupt survives. Camerupt lives on 1 HP. If the opponent threw on better timing, they would have won the game. But their lack of charge attack timing cost them. Camerupt with the 1 HP survive and securing the win. Dream Lead in the final match, Shadow Abomasnow into Seismitoad. Seismitoad is a very strong pick this season. However, Seismitoad can't really do much of anything into Abomasnow. It can debuff and then pivot into Charge Bug. Here, Abomasnow definitely should have saved the energy. Throwing this Weather Ball is a pretty big mistake, because there is the hardest counter in the game to Charge Bug in the back with the Shadow Camerupt. So Abomasnow could have saved the energy, brought in the Camerupt, and then just fully incinerated down. Either way, still in a very advantageous position as Fearow hits the field, but it would have been cleaner there to save that Weather Ball. Rock Tomb into the Fearow is going to be guaranteeing a shield and an attack drop. Fearow never going to be able to farm down before the second Rock Tomb, so that forces their hand to fire off the Drill Peck. And Abomasnow is just simply too good into this team. Opponent pivots out, sending in the Seismitoad, and Abomasnow's energy is just undeniable. Energy Ball will be shielded. Seismitoad will get to apply a debuff, but it's just simply too little too late. Seismitoad has no fast attack pressure in this matchup. They can overfarm quite a bit with the Abomasnow. Abomasnow actually loses charge stat priority to the Seismitoad. Seismitoad has a higher attack stat than one might think, but even double debuffed, this still should end up taking the knockout. It's double super effective. Seismitoad gets KO'd. Back in comes the Fearow, and a -2 Weather Ball. Fearow is not known for its bulk. Fearow is a very strong pick. Fearow still gets KO'd, and that's a good game. All in all, these were some very fun battles, so many thanks for the battle submission. I really like the addition of Shadow Ball on Shadow Qwilfish. I think that it will make Qwilfish, which is already a very strong limited meta monster, even stronger. In a lot of metas where Qwilfish was strong, I typically ran Aqua Tail and Scald because I felt that Ice Beam oftentimes ended up feeling a little bit too expensive since it was 7 to the first. But with Shadow Ball being 50 energy and it only being 6 to the first, I think Shadow Ball is just going to become strictly the preferred secondary move for Qwilfish. Not only does it give you massive neutral damage in the mirror, but Water plus Ghost is already insanely efficient coverage. We've seen Pokemon like Jellicent have play in the Open Grade League with that coverage, and obviously Qwilfish doesn't quite have the stats to hold its own against the bulk monsters of the Open Grade League, but in these limited formats, I think that's where Qwilfish can absolutely shine. As far as Shadow Camerupt, I just really enjoy playing Shadow Camerupt, so I'm very happy to see a trainer have pretty good results with Camerupt, even in a non-Aegislash line. I feel like most of the time when people see Camerupt, they assume there's going to be an Aegislash somewhere, because Camerupt's shield pressure is insane. And with the buff to Earth Power, it does actually get even better shield pressure, because I believe you get 10 extra base damage, and that matters quite a bit when you're going up against some of the bulkiest Pokemon that the Great League has to offer. As far as Abomasnow, I mentioned in my video at the start of the season, I was not looking forward to Abomasnow. Due to its typing and the cheaper Energy Ball, Abomasnow does have some intriguing core breaking potential, but it's so incredibly feast or famine. If Abomasnow's in a bad matchup, the game is basically lost in the vast majority of circumstances, just because it gets absolutely destroyed due to its typing. And I tend to prefer Pokemon that have more neutral matchups, or at the very least can hit back against their counters. So I don't think Abomasnow is bad by any means. I think Abomasnow is a very playable mon this season. I probably won't run a lot of it just because of its very feast or famine nature. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed watching today's video, please do help support the channel by leaving a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And an extra special thank you as always to our channel members here on YouTube. The support you guys provide to the channel is so sincerely appreciated. So thank you guys always so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.